Hi everyone, and welcome back to ArtSpot Online, the online version of the free weekly drop-in art making program at the Tampa Museum of Art, where we learn about a work of art on view at the museum and make something inspired by it. Today we're going to be looking at the installation called White Gold by Thomas Sayre. Born in 1950, Thomas Sayre grew up in Washington, D.C. and currently lives and works in North Carolina. Sayre is best known for his large-scale earth-cast sculptures, where he creates large cast sculptures by carving out huge molds into the earth. These large public works are all over the United States and the world, including Tampa. You might have seen his monumental sculpture called Ripple Gates at the entrance of the Julian B. Lane Riverfront Park, commissioned by the city of Tampa. In this installation, white gold refers to cotton and a reverence for the land, the labor, and the people, forced or unforced, who made cotton their livelihood. So why cotton? Here's a long quote from Thomas Sayre about that. "I suppose it all began many years ago while in college. I attended one of the state's first fiddlers' conventions in central North Carolina that spring, and I vividly remember venturing out into the nearby fields in the early morning hours. I walked out between the rows and felt compelled to drop to the ground, face up, looking at the stars, listening to the night sounds, and feeling the adjacent barns guarding the land. I imagined whose footsteps had come before on the clay-filled soil and wanted to embrace the furrows, the dirt, and the plants that you could almost hear growing. It was a feeling of being surrounded and pulled down while my mind struggled with big-picture thoughts of growth, decay, timelessness, and loss. Row, track, barn, thicket." In part, these works came from that seminal experience. I hope the viewer will feel similarly enveloped by that breadth of our beautiful, rich, and haunted land. So white gold is this forceful expression of the southern landscape, the searing beauty and the haunting pain of history, memory, and ultimately belonging. Thomas Sayre has always made work that balances human intention with the natural resistance of materials. His process of making creates a kind of beauty that arises from the intersection of human labor and nature. The artist has one idea for how to manipulate the materials, but different materials, especially natural ones, will react each in their own different way. The earth casts in white gold are one expression of this intersection of mark making and nature. In the newer two-dimensional work, that same intersection is achieved with earth, tar, paint, and the artist's labor, this physical act of smearing, scraping, and rubbing. For Sayre, this process is also a way to process the past. Today, using a similar process of dripping, smearing, and scraping, we're going to make an abstract landscape painting inspired by the two-dimensional work in white gold. To make it, you're going to need a lawn sign, a utility knife, paint, paintbrush, regular glue, and a plastic card, so an old gift card or a playing card works just fine. To get started, take your utility knife and cut off with the grain of your coroplast, which is the fancy word for these lawn signs. Cut off about a third of the sign to make a long rectangular panel. Take your glue and then squeeze out your cotton blossom or flower shapes. Don't yet worry about the stems or leaves, we'll make those later. And make sure you don't use too much glue or these spirally designs will start to spread out and it'll just become a blank blob. So resist the urge to keep pouring more and more glue on there. Just make some interesting spirally designs and then move on to the next flower. Next, take your hairdryer and on high, blast your cotton blossoms to start to spread the glue out and get some more splattery shapes. And while the glue dries, it'll take a little bit for it to dry. So while the glue's drying, that's when we're gonna mix up some brown paint. So if you have some brown paint in a tube or in a bottle, just use that. But if you don't have brown paint, any two colors that are directly opposite each other on the color wheel will make brown when you mix them together. So for example, if you take a green and a red, or if you mix orange and blue, or if you mix violet and yellow, any of those two color combos will produce more natural earthy brown colors. So go through your paints, go on a color hunt, and just make your own earthy brown color by mixing together two opposite colors that you already have a lot of in your art supplies. So once we have some brown paint, smear it all over the panel with your large brush. And quickly, before it dries, use your plastic card to push the paint in between your glue lines and to spread it out all over the rest of the panel. Next, still with the card, you're gonna scrape away more paint near the top to create an area that looks more like the sky because it's lighter than below. And then use the corner of your card to create branches in and around all of your blossoms. Add a bunch, don't just create some that are coming off of your blossoms, scrape away a bunch of extra ones to create a really interesting dense thicket. Once this layer is dry, this will dry much faster than the glue. You can go back in with some white paint to emphasize your cotton blossoms and really make them kind of explode out from the thicket. If you want, Thomas Sayre does this too. You can take your painting outside, and while the paint is still wet, the white paint, you can find a stick and just smack the blossoms to create a couple more little extra splatters. And then you're done. So this is a really specific process that Thomas Sayre uses to create this body of work. See what other new creative things you can make using the same process, right? It doesn't have to be about cotton or flowers or nature at all. But hopefully this gives you a new way to think about how you can make a painting. All right, that's Art Spot Online for this week. Thank you so much for learning and making with the Tampa Museum of Art. Make sure you subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any episodes, and we'll see you next week.